everyone. I'm Kim Jacobs, host of The Kim Jacobs Show, where we're bringing balance to the world one household at a time. Listen, we go live every weekday, Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I bring guests on that talk about their backstories, things that they've had to overcome to become who they are today. Many of them are balancing and juggling life, and they've become experts in different fields. So they're sharing tips with you to make your life just a little bit easier. Many times as a guest in the studio audience, you'll get a chance to walk away with a missing piece of the puzzle that might be missing in your life. Let's go on this journey together, and I look forward to seeing you Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on The Kim Jacobs Show. You're watching Kim Jacobs Show. All right, everyone, welcome to The Kim Jacobs Show. How are you today, Dr. Kristen?
I am doing great, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing great. I see all of that bright sun back there in the background. Where are you located?
I am in Maryland, so it's kind of sticky and muggy here, but definitely bright sunshine.
Okay. Well, listen, everybody, I'm glad that you are here today and glad to have you all in the virtual studio audience too. So make sure that when you come in, be kind enough to let us know where you're visiting in from. We'd love to give a shout out to you to welcome you. The show can't be anything without your participation. So thank you for taking the time to be a part of today's discussion. Today, everybody, we're talking with Dr. Kristen in the Maryland area, and she is here to talk to us about mental health, our youth specifically. Give everybody, if you will, before we would ever take a commercial break or go to some shout outs, just a snippet of what it is that we're going to be discussing so people can start sharing the broadcast like crazy.
Absolutely. So I'm here to talk about youth mental health and in the crisis that it really is at this point in time. I really started down this journey of being passionate about youth needs and youth mental health needs about 8 years ago, so prior to the pandemic. And unfortunately, the pandemic has just exacerbated that. And I think we are seeing that nationwide just in what the return to school has looked like for students, for teachers, for parents, and the struggle that students are having. Even I believe I saw a press release go out yesterday from the White House addressing the fact that mental health in the education setting has become so noticeable that they are working to try and address it. And I feel like I'm definitely someone who's on the forefront of it because I saw this coming, never knew that the pandemic was coming when I went down this path. But unfortunately, it has just taken something that was a large issue and made it unfortunately worse. And we're seeing it really impact our youth, not just in what their future aspirations hold, but how they're feeling now, how they're willing or not willing to attend school, and how it's really starting to create this essentially a secondary pandemic as far as suicidal ideations go and just not feeling great about themselves and who they are after having several years in isolation. So I'm here to talk about that and what we can do to try and change that and really start to help youth be in a much better place.
Oh, good. So we are going to have a hearty discussion, as you can already hear, because what she said in 3 minutes or less is already enough for a whole full hour of a show. So take some notes, some wonderful notes throughout this discussion. And you will be popping a lot of her thoughts and comments over here anyway in the comment section. But ask your questions. Do not be a parent and you're watching today's episode and you're thinking or contemplating some things, not sure which way to handle some issues and not get it addressed while we have Dr. Kristen here on the show today. So when we come back after this commercial break, let me actually introduce to see, hey, Jay, how are you from Davenport, Iowa? Pop a few of the people up, Mackenzie, backstage, if you don't mind, so we can give some shout outs. Cool Gamer, hello, how are you? All the way from New York, France is in the house. France said, hey, all right. Glad to have you. B1 Dennis Spraggins is here. Glad to see you. And I see all of you that are coming in. And as you do, pop your comments in and we'll be sure to recognize you. We're going to come back right after this commercial break and jump right into today's topic. We'll be right back.
It's not just another day. It's a brand new day, full of all the fun, love, and laughter you and your family create. Silver Shield Security understands feeling at home means feeling safe and happy. No credit checks, no contracts. We offer payment arrangements, and we'll even give you a free door camera. Find out how we can brighten your day even more at silvershield-security.com. Silver Shield Security.
All right, everyone, and we're back. We're talking with Dr. Kristen Eccleston, and this beautiful, brilliant mind is a doctor of mind, brain, and teaching, and I would add and beauty, but that's just me saying that over here. Expert in school mental health needs, versed in the needs of neurodiverse brain. And so I'd like to welcome you today to the Kim Jacobs Show, Dr. Kristen.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and to have this conversation and hopefully shed some light or answer some questions for your audience today.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, today is also National Women's Day. So make sure you all celebrate all of the women that are important in your life, even coworkers, friends, moms, people that are neighbors. Just make sure you celebrate any women. Today is Women's Day. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for sharing that stat with us. And just make sure you take a moment to thank and recognize every single woman. Listen, speaking of women, I think it's probably a good place to start. So many women are mothers too. And so when you're dealing with our youth, they're either mothers, grandmothers, aunts, godmothers. There's something that has the word mother in it in some regard, right?
Absolutely.
How do we even know what to look for in our youth? I think that would be a good place to start because we don't know.
That is a great question. And actually, one of the things that I specialize is in internalizing behaviors. And a lot of people, well, what is an internalizing behavior? So I like to explain externalizing versus internalizing behavior. So externalizing are your squeaky wheel children, right? The ones who, something's going on. They're upset. They're making it known. They're having meltdowns. They're having tantrums. Maybe they're throwing a chair in school. They're yelling out. Those are the children that something is going on. And typically they get addressed because of it. But there's a lot of internalizers, a lot of people who don't make it super known that something is going on. And this happens a lot with our youth. This happens a lot with moms too. I'm going to throw that out there too. I think moms like to be those strong people who, carry things, put everybody's weight on their shoulders. And so internalizing, especially in our youth, is something is big. And I specialize in trying to help schools and families identify these signs. And so these are students who oftentimes are the withdrawn students. They're the ones who don't engage in a school activity. They're the ones who are quiet. They're the ones who maybe don't have a lot of peer interactions going on. Maybe they're the ones who are school avoiders and are not attempting to go to school on a regular basis. It's hard to get them there, or they're constantly getting that phone call to mom, I'm in the nurse's office, come pick me up, my stomach hurts today. And so those are those internalizers. Oftentimes they're ones who kind of go under the radar. They're the ones who have grades that are maybe passing grades. Maybe they're not the best. They're in that C range, but they're not raising any red flags for anyone, right? They're not causing issues. They're not failing horribly, but you realize that something's amiss. I think in the past, maybe people thought that they were just kind of loners or maybe not engaging with their peers or quiet. But these are the students that are actually the ones who are really struggling mentally. They're the ones who are really looking for some support or for that adult connection or that peer connection. And those are the ones that we should be putting red flags out there and saying, hey, what's going on and how can I help you?
Now, let me ask there, do we actually, when you say put those red flags out and say that person, even though they're not the squeaky wheel getting the grease type of thing, how do we put those red flags out there without pulling them out of their comfort zone to the point where we could be causing them more mental distress?
That's a great question. And I would say with that, it doesn't have to be this like jump in feet first and be like, hey, I noticed you don't have any friends. What's wrong with you? Type of thing. It can be as that trusted adult trying to build as a teacher, a relationship, helping them out, having conversations with them, taking interest in them, hey, I noticed you have a new pair of shoes. I love J's too. What kind of J's did you get this weekend? Or, oh, that's a really cool t-shirt, just stuff to start building that relationship. I think it also helps too if you notice that they have a hard time with peer connections. One of the worst things you can do as a teacher is go, all right, everyone, pick your partner and you can start working. That student will always choose to work by themselves. So instead, say, I went ahead and assigned everybody a partner, and you'll get, oh, I wanted well, that too bad. You know what I mean? Go ahead and do it because you know that you're helping that student in a way have to step out of their comfort zone a little bit. And then maybe as a teacher, you're going around and you're giving a little special attention to that group. It doesn't have to be obvious. You know, you walk around as a teacher anyways, but you're stopping by, you're helping engaging, you're making sure, oh, you know, hey, I know Kim has great ideas. Has Kim shared any of her ideas with the group? You know, those types of things so that you're helping to engage and you're trying to build this level of trust with that student. Because I think a lot of times some of these students in my professional experience have had incidences before with teachers where either they don't trust teachers now or they feel bad about themselves or school is not the best setting for them. So you kind of have to help build or bridge that gap a little bit.
That's really good. There are so many teachers that fall on different ends of the spectrum. I have some teachers that my children, they still remember their names. We still stay connected on Facebook, and they're a part of our lives forever. They're just embedded in our hearts. And so we have teachers like that. And then there are some incidents, which is very rare. Let me be very clear. It's extremely one-off. I think most teachers that are, based on what I've observed anyway, are interested in the well-being of your child. They're interested because they have your children sometimes more than you do. So I think that their partnership with your child, I'm not even going to talk about the one-off because the one-off is literally an anomaly. And so it's just the one-off. But for the most part, I believe that the teachers that sign up to say, I want to care for your children, genuinely care for our children. That's what I believe, you know?
I absolutely agree with that. I like to think of it sometimes as this spectrum. And I explain it to people that you have people who went into teaching for one of two reasons. And then there's kind of this spectrum in between. And one was, I love kids. I love kids. I'm really passionate. I want to see them be successful. And that's why I'm going to become a teacher. And then you have people who became teachers because I love this content. Like I love science or I love math. And so that's why I want to be a teacher. So it's more of the love of the content. And then you have this kind of range in the middle. I would say those are the two ends of the spectrums. And I would say sometimes your one-off teachers usually end up in that spectrum of I love the content because it was more, that's why I was motivated to become a teacher because of the content more than it was because I love kids. And it doesn't make them a bad person. It doesn't make them a bad teacher. If anything, their passion for the content sometimes comes through for kids. But sometimes there's that disconnect in that being, I want to build a relationship with you, or I'm here for your best interest, because the motivation behind becoming a teacher was a little different than the person who is, I love kids.
Interesting. And now when you say neurodiverse brain, can you explain that? Like even just for I'm a talk show host, I have what's the neurodiverse brain? I've done research, but I'd rather everyone be able to hear it.
Absolutely. So I like to explain the neurodiverse brain as if you've heard of autism or ADHD or sensory processing disorder, dyslexia, dyscalculia, those are all things that fall into that neurodiverse category. And I would say some of those things are more sibling related, like you'll find commonalities between dyslexia, dyscalculia. And then there's things that are a little bit more cousin-like, you know, you might have ADHD, but you might also have dyslexia, but you don't have to have the two. But there's like, I like to think of a Venn diagram, and there's all kind of a little bit of bleed over to all of them. They all have some similarities going on with them. If you go to my Instagram, I've created this neurodiversity family tree that kind of maps it out how it looks in my mind as far as how all those things are related. But those are neurodiversity. And I really like to explain it to people in a way that it's your brain just looks at the world differently. One of the things that I really try to promote and make known is I feel like there's this stigma that comes with people who are neurodiverse. You hear autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit disorder. But it's not necessarily a disorder. Some of the people who have ADHD or autism are incredibly bright, like pure cancer type of knowledge type of individuals. Their brain just processes information differently and sees the world differently, takes in information differently, is creative in a different way. You know, when one person who's neurotypical can focus on one thing, the neurodiverse brain can focus on 500 different things at one time. So your executive functioning might be a little impacted, but your creativity and your ability to problem solve is much more enhanced. And I feel like oftentimes students who are neurodiverse get some negative messages at school because school has really been designed for this one size fits all type of box.
Wow.
And if you don't fit into that box, you get a lot of these messages of, what's wrong with me as a learner? Why can't I take testing the right way? Or why don't I have the same outcomes as my peers who are neurotypical? And you really start to kind of self-defeat on your self-confidence there, which is really sad, because a lot of these kids are incredibly bright. And I see a lot of that mental health piece really bleed into a lot of students who are neurodiverse because of those negative messages that they're getting, especially in the school setting, to think that there is something wrong with you.
Wow.
Oftentimes, the only way to get supports or services as a student who's neurodiverse is through special education. And of course, that comes with a stigma. If you're someone who goes, well, I'm in special ed, but you're not really a special education student, you just need a different way of school being taught to you, it still impacts your psyche a little bit of how you see yourself. And I really see that impacting students. And it's sad because then it takes them almost a decade. And I can actually speak to this of personal experience. I'm someone who has ADHD diagnosed, didn't know until later in life that I had ADHD. I was almost 30 years old by the time I found out. And I hated school. I was not a great student. I really didn't like school. I didn't enjoy going to school. I felt horrible about myself. And it almost took me a decade after high school to finally go, wait, I actually might be a little bit smarter than I thought I was. I might be a little bit more capable than I thought I was. But for so many years, I had gotten this message that something was wrong with the way that I learned, and I believed it. And it took me almost a decade to come out of that and go, wait a minute, I actually am a great learner. It just has to be done this way.
Well,
I don't want kids to have that.
That's good. When you discovered that, because you just said a mouthful, okay?
I know, I'm
whole
sorry.
lot. And there's a lot to unpack here. So what I want to make sure is, one thing was part of your backstory that I want to address for a second. You said that you didn't really like school. It was something that was not a pleasurable experience for you. What happened that was that turning point that made you come to that realization that you're brilliant beyond your own imagination? What happened?
It was not until I was in college. And it's funny, I struggled my first year in college because you have to take all those gen ed courses, right? All those courses that you're not necessarily interested in, but everybody has to take the math, the English.
Do what you got to do.
Right? But the second I was in my sophomore year and I'd gotten all those gen eds out of the way, and I got to major in something that was interesting and fascinating to me, it was like this light bulb went off, and I did great in school. And that's when I started to have realizations that maybe I'm a better student than I thought I was, or maybe I'm more capable than I ever realized, because now I got to focus on something that was meaningful and exciting to me. I still didn't know I had ADHD at the time, but I started to realize that when I was interested in something, I could do whatever. And I learned it very quickly when I was interested, which is a neurodiverse trait. Typically, students who are neurodiverse, if it's an area of interest, they learn it very quickly. For example, one night I wanted to make something as a teacher. I wanted to code something, and I'd never taken a computer class. I taught myself how to write HTML code in one night because I was so determined that I wanted to make something that I needed HTML code for. And so I just sat there and I taught myself how to do it. And a lot of people who are neurodiverse can do that. But you don't realize you have some of those hidden gifts because you've gotten all these negative messages for such a long period of time when you're in school that make you think otherwise about your capabilities.
Wow. Okay, y'all, listen, I know that you're taking a lot of notes. I see a lot of comments coming in. Before we take our commercial break, Mackenzie, let's pop some of these comments up backstage. Mackenzie's backstage working with us, guys. So thank you so much. Let's see some of the comments. Oh, Jess says, I'm celebrating every woman in here. I love you. I'm assuming you mean me. And I'm assuming you mean Kristen. Go back for a second. I'm just trying to love on her for a minute, Mackenzie. Give me a second. Go. Much love to the strong women out there. She's like, no, keep it moving, Kim. Okay, go. Dennis says that. Who else? Hello from Denver, Colorado, Mary. Hi, beautiful ladies. You are smart. She's definitely talking about you over there. You are smart. Okay,
everybody here.
That is so true. Everything you've been saying, this Facebook user says that is so true. Anyone else? Create purpose, Dennis says. Absolutely. Keeping things 100 is what you're doing here on today's show. And any others? Good morning, Mr. Les Brown. Thanks for all the motivation and encouragement, Sandra says. And I did see your comment too, Cheryl, where you said, thank you to Dr. Les Brown for allowing the Kim Jacobs Show to air here on his platform. And yes, on behalf of the Kim Jacobs Show, we are completely honored and privileged to be able to have the show stream here Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, along with, we're also streaming, and let me put this up, we're streaming on CTR Media Network as well. And CTR Media Network is in over 300 million households, as well as whatever platform you're currently watching this show. Trauma changes the brain. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It creates gray matter in that brain.
It also, go back and say, what did you say?
It creates gray matter in your brain. So it does actually change how your brain sees and connects and views things. So 100%, Wallace.
Interesting. Let me ask you a question. Are you saying that if a child may have experienced something that they've witnessed, okay, I have a tickle in my throat now. Okay. That they may have witnessed at home or that's happened to them in their childhood, maybe molestation or seeing the death of a parent. It doesn't always have to be bad stuff that's been happening to the person, but it may just be life experiences like the death of a family member or the death of a parent or grandparent or whatever. Those traumatizing situations change the gray matter in the brain?
It does. Yes. It creates more gray matter in the brain, and it can make it harder to learn at times. It essentially changes your availability for learning. And I have people all the time who go, what do you mean availability for learning? So essentially availability for learning is just that. Are you someone who is here and you're able to take in information and you're ready to learn? Or do you feel like some of your basic survival needs, food, shelter, home, safety are not being met? And if that's the case, then you're not available for learning. And that's what a lot of teachers also don't always recognize. I love to give this example when I'm working with teachers and trying to kind of change their mindset a little bit. You might have a student who comes in and they put their head down. And oftentimes people, that student's lazy. They always come in, they just sleep. They're not trying. They don't put any effort in. And I always go, let's reframe it for a second. What if you knew the background of this child? What if you knew that this child is homeless and they sleep in a car? What if you knew that this child had a mother who's a single mother and they're the oldest of 4 or 5 siblings and they're in charge of making sure everybody gets homework, dinner, everything. And then by the time they get to go to bed, they only get a couple hours of sleep. And so when they come in, their primary needs are not being met. So they're not available for learning. So instead of looking at them like, oh, it's just this lazy kid, why don't we try to figure out what the root cause is of what's going on and why they're so tired or what's happening, instead of just jumping to assumptions of what is going on with this kid. And that is because trauma does impact you. If you're not having your basic needs met, then you're not going to be available for this external learning. Your brain doesn't see that as a priority or a need right now. And one of the best things I always tell teachers is, I know this is an education setting because I do teach at the university level, helping teachers become teachers essentially too. And I say, right, instead of let's look at this as this is an education institute, let's build relationships first. You're going to learn how to be a teacher and you can teach. Good. But you can't teach people who are not available for learning. But you can help people be available for learning if they have realized you've become their safe space. If you are somebody who they trust and know has their best interest because you took the time to build that relationship and really get to know who they are, that's going to make the difference. That's what you can appeal to on those rough days or those tough days.
So I like to role play, Dr. Kristen. So role play with me if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
I'm the teacher. You're the brain neurodynamic study brain specialist that you really are, right? Okay. So I am going to talk to you. I'm in session with you. Dr. Kristen, I have so many children in my room and they are all over the place. I have those that are there to learn. They're excited, they're motivated, and they're giving it their all. And then I have those that are totally distracted in the class. And I don't even know what they're coming to school for, but it's just ridiculous that their parents would even send them to school with that behavior without getting it checked somewhere at a counseling session first. What do I do?
So that would be a situation where I would like you to go to the counselor I would like you to see if you know any background information, because oftentimes the counseling services knows a little bit more about what's going on at home than we sometimes get in the classroom. So try to figure out, is there something going on? Maybe counseling knows that this is the dynamic at home, or this has changed. And that would be good information to have, because then you can be a little bit more understanding that this is what this child is experiencing, or this is what this child is going through. It'll let you to open up that empathy space just a little bit more for this child. But then I want you to spend time at lunch, spend time in the classroom. If you're not available during lunch, sit down next to the child, work one-on-one. If you know that your other students are good, they're giving it their all, get everybody started on their task and go get some special attention. But don't make it just about the lesson. Sit down and start talking about, oh, I like your shoes. I like your shirt. What did you do this weekend? I noticed that you were make it about them. Put learning on the back burner. That's not important right now. Right now, what's important is establishing this connection with this kid and trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay, fast forward. I'm back in session with you. I've done what you told me. And now, okay, guys, please just work with me here. Everybody that's in the studio audience. I love this kind of stuff. Okay. So now I'm back. Okay. So Dr. Kristen, I actually did talked to the counselor, and she told me that, this child has been dealing with a lot of things at home, and actually her dog died. And so that's what I found out. So I'm so glad that you gave me that advice. You can take that off the screen, Mackenzie. Thank you. So I'm so glad that you gave me that advice, because by doing that, I was able to find out that she did have a traumatizing experience, and that made a difference in her learning. And already she's doing much better. I actually gave her a card because, for the loss of a pet. And so I was really happy that you gave me that feedback. So thank you. Thank you.
And that's how it should work. Now, I will say, I'm sure you would have teachers who would go, I try to build relationships and this kid doesn't care. And, and I get that often too, because you'll hear a lot, that they say, just build a relationship. I get a lot of that feedback. And I'm going to say that I'm going to tell a little bit of a story, because I feel like this is an important story for teachers or any adult who's trying to work with a child who feels like, I've tried to build a relationship and they don't care.
It doesn't work. Okay.
Sometimes it's a test. It is a test from that child. And I will tell, this is a true story. I had a student many years ago who I love and adore now. We couldn't have had a better relationship by the time they graduated from high school. But when they started as a 9th grader, it took us about 2 years to build a relationship.
Wow.
But what I needed to know about this child was, this child had had every single adult in their life since they were very young fail them, and fail them. And who was I but maybe one more adult who was going to fail and reject them in their life? And so sometimes kids are testing you. It is a test, because they have built up their defense mechanisms and their wall, because they're trying to protect themselves from hurt and pain that they've experienced. And so oftentimes what they're trying to do is they're going to push you to your limit. They're going to find every little button that you have, and they're going to push it, because they have to know, are you going to be one more adult that is going to fail me or abandon me or just decide I can't deal with you anymore? And it might take you 2 years to finally break through, but that's what that kid needed. He needed to test me for 2 years before he went, all right, this lady is not going to give up on me. This lady is not going to abandon me. This lady isn't going to go, you're not worth my time. And if you knew his backstory, it was understandable why he did that to me. And it was a test that I had to pass. So I could have either failed that test and been one more adult who failed him, and he would have been reinforced in his rightfulness to have just been like, I don't want to deal with you. Or I could continue showing up every day, despite the arguments, despite the trouble, despite everything. And then at the end of those 2 years, I had a beautiful relationship with this kid that I would not have changed any of the difficulty I had in establishing it over those 2 years, because it was solid, because he knew I would not give up on him. So sometimes I think, instead of looking at it like, this is ridiculous, I can't build this relationship, look at it as, this is a test that the kid is giving to you. Are you going to pass this test, or are you going to fail this test? Because sometimes it's not an immediate fix.
I love your feedback. I love everything that you're sharing. For everyone that's just joining, we're talking with Dr. Kristen Eccleston, and we're talking about mental health of our youth in schools today. And how you can stay connected with her is at www.theneurodiverseteacher.com, theneurodiverseteacher.com, or at theneurodiverse.teacher on Instagram. And I see Marcy says, absolutely. Somebody else said that I was that kid. Maria says, agree, we must help each child individually. They all need different things. If they can relate to you, if they can't relate to you, they will never open up. That's very important. Someone says, love it. Building relationships sets the tone for all that follows. And that's from Sean Good. Let's see. So true. I was that child. And my teachers never even asked me questions or seemed to care about the backdrop story, is what that person said. But you just hit it right spot on. So this is a great session for even this person, probably as an adult, and still being traumatized from what happened with some people that may not have believed in him or her at that time, whoever the Facebook user is. All right, everybody, when we come back from this commercial break, we're going to talk more with Dr. Kristen about mental health in our youth. And let's talk about what parents need to know when we return. We'll be right back.
When someone has lost a loved one, they want to know what exactly happened. They want to know, is the other person going to be held responsible? And they want closure. At Hunter and Everett, we help clients that have lost a loved one move on, and to do that with dignity and respect that they deserve.
All right, everyone, and we are back. And as we're transitioning our discussion here, we want to talk about parents of children that are dealing with some mental health issues. And when it comes to school life in general, what do parents need to know? What should we look out for?
So I think it's important for parents to, one, really validate children's feelings. I think we're kind of at this new cusp for, even a generation ago, mental health was not what it is now. It was not as widely known. It was not as widely talked about. Oftentimes, if you brought it up, you might have gotten a response like, you're fine, you're being dramatic. I think those were common responses just because that was kind of a generational approach to mental health. And I think over the last maybe 10 years, we have started to realize, hey, mental health is really something that is up and coming. It is something that we need to give it a little bit more attention to, especially what we're seeing in schools. I think we are seeing, unfortunately, shootings. And I think a lot of those are a root cause of mental health needs. We're seeing an increase in suicides or suicidal ideations, which are definitely rooted in mental health needs. So I think for parents, it's this process of really just needing to communicate with your kids, asking them what's going on, really trying to validate what they're feeling. I know as a parent, I even sometimes with my kids, they'll say stuff and I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. This is what you're upset about? Like, what is this? But I think to them, you have to realize their world is much smaller than that of a world of an adult, right? Like, what happened at school is their world. That is the end of everything because they have some of the other adult stressors going on. So validating their feelings, like, even if you think it's crazy, is I understand why that would feel that way. And I felt this way, or here's a story from when I was younger and I can relate, and show them that you have dealt with those feelings as well.
That's right.
And be sympathetic. I think oftentimes we're quick to kind of reject kids' feelings and tell them they're fine, or that's ridiculous, or you're being dramatic. And those feelings of not validating their feelings, even if we know it's a little over the top, that I think is more impactful for them. If they feel like they have you in their corner and that you're willing to listen through what's going on in their day and be involved and really help them work through it too. I always try to encourage my kids that I am a safe space. There is nothing that you can't say to me that I won't help you work through. I don't want you to feel like you're going to get in trouble. You'll never get in trouble for being honest with me. We might need to talk about what should have happened or what would be the better way to handle a situation. But I would rather you feel like you can come and talk to me through it and we can problem solve through it together than for you to keep something from me. And I think sometimes kids feel that fear of getting in trouble. They'll keep things. And so really trying to establish a safe space for your child to come and talk to you is incredibly important, especially in this day of social media. I feel like things can get out of hand very quickly with bullying, dealing with just, not thinking through
Right.
things and posting things, not realizing that now it's out there forever. So allowing your child to be able to come have those conversations with you, validate their feelings, and really be a team problem solver. It doesn't mean you step away from being that parent role, but at that point in time, you're being that sympathetic ear and you're trying to help be a team member, a team player with them in whatever they're going through.
That's good. Very good. Actually, I wrote a book. My first book that I wrote when I was younger is Extreme Balance Makeover. And it's tips in here that talks to people about all different ways to have great parent-teen relationships, how to be able to balance all different aspects of your life. But one of the things in our house that we do is we have family meetings. And so that the family meetings are necessary because what we do is we share resources with each other that maybe the other one didn't have access to throughout the week, and we share that information, and it makes a world of difference for my children. So I encourage you all, if you have children, talk to your children, do some type of dinner topic discussion where we have these cards and you can pull a card out. And it worked a lot more when they were younger, but it just was like a conversation starter. And it would say, well, if you were president for a day, what would you do to change the world? If you were able to create any type of patented product, what would it be? And it was just to give a conversation starter. And some of the things that my children came up with were mind blowing. Like one of my kids said, oh, I would create an emotion code detector to determine if this person was feeling sad and it would turn this color. And if it was feeling good, it would turn not just like emotion ring, but they said it where it was like this whole really in-depth scientific thought process to it that I never ever would have even known even was the way that they think. So I was like, get out of here. So doing creative things with your family makes a world of difference. Having those family meetings will matter if you want to take advice from the balance doctor over here. Okay.
No, but absolutely. And it's a great way to get to know your kid a little bit better. Because like you said, sometimes you didn't even know that they were thinking that, or that those are thoughts that they had in their head. So it's I think we know our kids, but sometimes we don't know the inner thoughts or the inner things. So it's a great way to get to know your kid a little bit more too.
Absolutely. And also the new suicide hotline in the United States is 988. So make sure that you all know that. I know that Mackenzie is probably gathering, and that's why she had popped out and popped back on the screen. You saw something pop on the screen for a second. The list globally as well. I know the other day she had provided that. But we do not want people not to be able to connect to the resources to get the help. If you are experiencing any suicidal thoughts at all, or you're just so depressed that having general conversation and being in isolation is something that you prefer to be in, you want to call and get some help. Okay.
Yes,
Definitely do that.
If anything, I'm sending my love to you. If you're that individual, you have my love, you have my support, and you are amazing. So please get that support because you are necessary and you are needed in this world.
And you are valued by those that value you. So if somebody does not value you, then guess what? They're just not for you. Don't worry about that. But
Yes.
There's a whole big world out here. So don't feel limited just to the one situation of somebody that didn't treat you the way you wanted to be treated,
Absolutely.
Okay, so somebody said, Maria said, I love the family meetings. Great idea. Thank you so much, Maria. You can learn a lot more about that in these books. You can get them over on, right? You can get an electronic copy actually for $3.99. An e-copy can be sent to you via email. But at $14.99, I have 10 copies of them, right? I actually have them. Some people that had just recently ordered some, so I'm getting ready to ship them their autographed copies. But if you want an autographed copy as well, just go to kimjacobshow.com and I'll get it over to you. It's $14.99. Okay, great. I see. I love the family meetings idea. Glad. Let's see. Awesome. Oh, Dr. Kristen, I see that you are from Rochester.
Oh, I am not, but
I thought she said she was from Maryland.
I am not from Rochester, but I have been to Rochester.
Okay, so you may see somewhere she visited Rochester, but she lives in Maryland. But don't worry about that. That's neither here nor there. How that culture and its legendary human rights history inspire you. Okay. How are you inspired? So I'm just going to represent you, Wallace. Put the comment back up, Mackenzie, for me. Kristen, even though she's from Maryland, don't worry about that, Wallace. The point is, how has the culture of wherever you're from and human rights history inspire you in the work that you currently do?
I guess I'll answer it in this way. So I'm from Maryland, but I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. So if you're familiar with Maryland, it is right on that cusp of the DC area. So I grew up in a very diverse area.
I lived over there.
Okay, so you know the area that I'm talking about. So it's very diverse. Where I went to high school was very diverse. So I think the way that has inspired me in my work is I was fortunate to grow up in an environment where I got to experience different cultures. I got to experience different race, different gender, different sexual identities. Even when I was younger, even though it's come much further than when I was younger, it was still there, being in that area. And I think that inspired me in the sense that I saw that everybody has a need. And I taught in that area that I grew up into. So I taught a very diverse range of students as well. So I saw that mental health it's not particular. It doesn't pick a certain gender. It doesn't pick a certain race. It really is there, and it impacts everyone. And that has been meaningful to me because I feel like my work is something that is important to everyone. It's not just one gender, one race. It's something that everybody needs to be supported with and felt heard and felt seen. And so I think, if anything, the area that I grew up in has impacted me because it allowed me to not just have this one little section or this one little area and only know just white suburbia or something. Like I saw everyone and I saw how important everyone is, how everybody has a role, how valuable everyone is, how loving everyone is, and that I wanted to make sure that everybody felt great about themselves, that everybody felt like they had the power to take on the world. And so I feel like, if anything, where I grew up has impacted me because I was fortunate enough to have my eyes open to the bigger world that is out there.
I love that answer. I hope that's a great answer for you, Wallace. I see you, Arnetta Caldwell, our Reinvent Yourself specialist. She's our expert here on the Kim Jacobs Show. And she also has a podcast that you can tune into on all of the downloadable platforms. And I know definitely it's on Spotify, if I'm not mistaken. But check out Reinvent It. Just type that in your downloads, and you're going to hear something super special. You can also follow her on Instagram. Again, she's one of the Kim Jacobs Show experts. Reinvent Yourself, and she's on today. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. So listen, talking about everybody having the possibility to have everything that is required and exciting about their lives and opportunities. When we come back, I'd like us to talk about growth mindset, especially, again, dealing with mental health in our youth. How do we encourage a growth mindset at an early age? When we come back after this commercial break, everybody, we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Samantha Benson, and I'm with Get Insured Solutions. You can get life insurance anywhere across the country, but with Get Insured Solutions, we have an advocacy program that helps families at the worst time of their lives with the loss of their loved ones. That means we have a funeral advocacy program that helps your family with funeral merchandise, negotiating the cost of your funeral expenses, and living benefits. Get Insured Solutions, LLC. Contact me, Samantha Benson.
All right, everyone, we're back, and we are talking with Dr. Kristen Eccleston. And I think that this has been like a month's worth of information that we've learned today. I don't know about y'all, but I learned so much. And our topic today is mental health of our youth in schools. And so, speaking of mindset, growth mindset, what's your philosophy on that? Talk to us.
Absolutely. So I love talking about growth mindset because I really love introducing the concept of a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And so a growth mindset is being something where you're open to hearing other people's perspectives and ideas. So I like to come at it at a starting point of personal bias. We all have personal biases. It is not a negative thing to have personal biases. Right. Every single one of us has it. Since the day we were born, we have a life experience that has led us to see the world the way that we see it through what we've experienced, right? If everybody always had a bad interaction with a blonde-haired lady, right, then you probably feel kind of iffy or standoffish about these blondes, right? Because that is what your life experience has has taught you. But if you think that every experience with somebody who's blonde has been the most bubbly, popular thing ever, then you would think it's great. So
I love blondes. I love blondes as a result of you.
Oh, thank
Kim
you.
Jacobs.
Oh, well, thank you so much. But it's we all have these personal biases, right? Based on what we've experienced in our life. But what the difference is are you open to realizing that I don't know what I don't know? We all don't know what we don't know. Every single one of us right now in this exact moment has a knowledge that hits right here. Like it's just, this is the ceiling. And there's all this area that we don't know yet. And are you open to recognizing that I don't know this stuff? Right. And that I'm going to have conversations with people. I'm going to hear about what you've been through in life, what you've experienced, how you feel about a certain topic. And I'm going to allow that information to come in, and I'm going to expand my knowledge by going, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's a great perspective. Oh, I've never seen it that way before. And I'm going to allow my brain to grow. Or am I going to be somebody who you're going to share stuff with me and I'm going, nope, that's not the way it is. Nope, I don't think so. And you just shut yourself down from being able to see things differently, to take a different perspective, to have that aha moment and go, I haven't thought of it that way before. And to me, that's the difference between having a fixed mindset, so really shutting yourself down to transforming your knowledge, versus having a growth mindset and going, I'm going to take in information. I'm going to take in other people's experiences, life things that have happened to them. And I'm going to allow that to grow because I hadn't thought of it that way, because I haven't experienced it that way. Now, I always tell people, by doing that and having growth mindset doesn't mean you have to change your mind. You're not obligated to change your mind. A good point. But you now have at least more information, and you've been open. You've asked questions. You genuinely are asking questions, not this like, I'm going to get you. Go ahead and share your information with me, and then I'm going to get. No, you're genuinely asking questions, right?
Is that a Maryland thing over there? Is that your diverse Maryland background? Because you're like, yeah, go ahead.
Maybe it might be, but you're really wanting to have a deeper understanding, and then you're deciding, okay, this has shaped how I see things a little bit, or no, it hasn't. And you're entitled, and that's okay to do that, but you've at least been open to the idea, and maybe you do change your mind, and it's okay. And it's actually a positive thing to change your mind. I think some people think changing your mind, oh, you're a hypocrite, or, oh, you change your mind all the time kind of thing. But no, maybe you have learned something more, or you know something now that you didn't know before, and you've allowed that to reshape how you see things or you view things.
I agree. And it gives you the opportunity to weigh every option and then be able to determine what option is going to work best for your life. And so this is this, like, you can put everything out there and see what's going to be the nuggets that you will apply. And then you can spit the bones out and say, okay, I don't need that. I don't need that. But that one thing right there, evaluate.
I'm attorney Kenneth D. Snow. And at the...
Oh, okay. Mackenzie, are you telling us to go to commercial break? Okay. She's keeping us on track. We're going to go ahead and go to commercial break. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Play it, Mackenzie.
I'm attorney Kenneth D. Snow, and at the Snow Legal Group, justice is our job.
For more than 20 years, Attorney Snow has been fighting for justice and winning cases in the Carolinas by providing aggressive representation in criminal defense, domestic violence, family law, serious injury, and wrongful death. If you've been injured or lost a loved one in an accident, including tractor trailer or rideshare, you need the Snow Legal Group by your side, fighting for justice and fighting for you. Visit snowlegal.com. Call 704-358-0026 for a free virtual consultation. Located at 6827 Fairview Road, Suite D in South Park.
All right, everybody. And even simple things like that, when you have a team working with you and they're giving their all, they're doing their best back there, and she's doing a fantastic job, right? So here, if something like that happens, it's easy to just take it so south and be like, oh, we can't, or thank you so much. Guess what? I will go to commercial break and let's just have a great experience. Mm-hmm. So I think our mindset, when we talk about mindset, it's all in keeping things in perspective.
Absolutely. One of the most powerful things is you are in charge of how you are viewing an experience. You can allow it to upset you and anger you, but you've allowed that to happen. Or you can be, it is what it is, and you can change your perspective and how you view it. I think oftentimes we forget that we have the power to really change how we are experiencing or viewing a situation.
I agree wholeheartedly. So it's 90% of how we react to the situation and 10% of what really just happened to us. But that big bulk is, how do we choose to allow it to impact us to the point where that's how we're behaving as a result of it? So keep that in mind, everyone. All right. So listen, I know Cassandra, one of our team members, has sent in some statistics. And one thing that it says here during the 2020, this came from, I'll put the stat, but it came from nces.ed.gov. And it's talking about, this stat is talking about during 2021-2022 school year, the most common type of mental health service provided by the public schools was individualized based intervention, one-on-one counseling. And that's 84% of the public schools that was the case, followed by case management of 70%, and external mental health referrals were 66%. That's some pretty high numbers for all three categories to me.
Oh, yes. And I would say of the clients I work with, because a lot of the work that I do is specifically with families. I work one-on-one with families. I help advocate to them, to the school system, to help them get the educational supports that they need for their child who is dealing with mental health needs. And I have seen all the way down as young as second grade, significant mental health needs, hospitalizations, suicidal ideations, concepts that I don't think I was even aware of when I was in second grade, and we're seeing it. And I think some of it is, we have more access to information than we've ever had in any period of history. Even our young kids, YouTube, TV shows, everything. So I think they are being introduced to concepts that maybe, a generation ago wasn't even being introduced to. But I also think a lot of people don't realize, when you think about the pandemic and the isolation that occurred, right? We were all kind of at home for a year and a half, 2 years, right? And some kids had a great loving home. It was home. But some kids looked forward to going to school every single day because that was their escape from a horrible situation. That was where they got fed. That is where they got love. That's where, some teachers, brought in extra clothes or brought in treats or different things
because they knew the situation. So, yeah.
Yes. And so, but those kids didn't get any of that for 2 years. And so you're probably seeing kids who experienced a really negative or traumatic environment for those 2 years that they were home. But there are kids too who still had a loving home, but missed out on social skills or friends or sports activities or different things that are really vital to growth and development at that young age. And that impact happened. I'll say my poor daughter, my mother had throat cancer during the pandemic. So we had to be incredibly careful because I was one of her primary caretakers. So I was always like, hand sanitize. And I think I even induced unknowingly a little bit of anxiety in my children because I was so amped up and paranoid about having to be careful for my mother's sake. And then all of a sudden one day I realized my poor daughter's hands were raw because she was washing her hands so much. And she was so scared about giving stuffed animals. She's young, giving her stuffed animals COVID and different things. So, and that was a level of anxiety that I had never meant to induce into her. I was trying to be careful for my mother's sake. So even in healthy, loving homes, there are children who experience different levels of anxiety or different traumas. And so it's something to be aware of. Kids didn't understand what a pandemic was, only that it just took them away from this sense of normalcy. And I think we're still going to be dealing with that for some period of time, especially in our younger kids who would have been kindergarten, first grade, second grade, who missed out on critical social skill development during that time.
Wow. I'm really glad that you're addressing this, because I know I have a son that is going back to college, but the college was never an online college. It was actually in-person school the whole time. But because of the pandemic, they were taking online classes. Well, now the transition is kind of interesting because it's like, I don't want to go back on campus. I want to stay and do online, but that's not even an option in some instances. So mentally, that's a big deal when you're having to try to talk about that with your children. And because I have 2 college students, one is physically having to go officially back to the campus which is at Chapel Hill. So he has to literally up and move back. And his nerves are like, oh my gosh, I got to go back to finish this last year. And then I have one that has been doing the from home online, but he has to go back to UNC Charlotte. So it's time to go back. You got to go back, and classes are back in session. And that's a toll on children mentally. And I'm only talking personally, but I can't imagine how everyone else is dealing with this. But according to this statistic here, which I'm going to put it on there in fortune.com, mental health crisis, college, schools, unprepared is what it says. According to Fortune, it says that anxiety is high, 43%. Depression is 33%. Trauma and stress-related disorders, as you heard that word disorders, is 12%. Neurodevelopmental disorders, such as ADHD or autism, is 11%. It's a lot of different statistics here. And women in college are more likely to report a diagnosis than men. So can you imagine the stats are really even higher? You know?
And it's what you asked me earlier about that neurodiverse aspect too. And one thing I didn't mention, but you can also, I think of autism, ADHD types of things as being more of a genetic based neurodiverse, but you can have PTSD, anxiety, OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, are all also considered to be in the neurodiverse realm as well. But I think of them as almost kind of like a secondary, they were almost like a trauma trigger aspect that is now being brought in and is kind of making your brain work or form differently. Like PTSD in itself is that change in that gray matter in that brain from trauma. And so your brain is functioning and processing differently. So it is almost kind of creating this neurodiverse brain, even if you hadn't previously been neurodiverse.
Right. Wow. Okay. It's just so much to process and to learn. And what about parents? And I know we're coming to the end here, but there are parents that have various different discipline styles. And you being a neuro brain specialist person, tell me what the right word is. So I'm saying it, not specialist person.
You're a doctor of education, essentially, but my focus was on mind, brain, and teaching. So, and I researched mental health and the education
and beauty, because you are beautiful too. So go ahead, tell us what your thoughts are pertaining to parents that may not understand that their children are dealing with a mental health crisis type of situation. So they are experiencing spankings and beatings and different things. Talk to us about your perspective.
Absolutely. So, that's a great question. There's this concept out now that's called gentle parenting. And a lot of people who are more on the I grew up with an iron fist are very anti-gentle parenting because they feel like that is the only way to get a child to be respectful. They really see that a lot of this gentle parenting is creating children who are not respectful of their elders and don't listen and are kind of out of control. And I don't necessarily agree. I live somewhere in the middle of the two. I actually think, and this is where growth mindset comes into play, that there is more than one way to parent. And what it really comes down to is knowing your child and who your child is and what they specifically need in order to be successful. And I would say if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd probably lean more towards the gentle parenting, but it's not in the sense that I just go, oh, well, it's okay. You felt, I really, in that, I want to validate your feelings, but I'll also haul you out of this restaurant and embarrass you in front of these people if you're acting a fool, because we're not going to do that. But I will talk to you later about why you were feeling that way, what you were going through, what would have been the better way to handle it, how we should go about it in the future, what my expectations for you are. I'll give you the opportunity to share with me, how I made you feel, and I'll, and that way we can talk about our feelings. And that's really the approach that I personally like to take. I don't necessarily feel like you have to. I had somebody talk to me the other day who used the word whoopins. Like, I don't know that you have to do that. I still feel like if your core value is to have children who are respectful and are respectful of their elders, that you could still accomplish that by making sure that you are, being strong in what your boundaries are. You set your boundaries for your children, and children test boundaries, and you hold fast on with those boundaries. If I tell you you're going to lose this and this is going to be your consequence, I follow through with that.
Do that, right?
An empty threat. But I will also talk to you about what you're feeling, what I was feeling, and so that we can understand each other and come to an agreement of how we should handle the situation the next time it comes up.
I love it. And Mackenzie said there is a difference between discipline and abuse, though. Yes. So there's that fine line.
Absolutely, there is. And I
Not
think some of that is that generational stuff that's creating a little bit of a gray area there. But there is, I mean, there's a difference between, hey, I've grabbed you and I'm directing you because we have not followed directions, and this is a safety issue now, and you're going to get hit by a car if I don't grab your arm, versus,
right.
you know, I'm hauling off on you because it's my intent to hurt you because I'm angry and I want you to feel pain. That, to me, that's the difference between I am directing you and now abuse has entered in.
I love your breakdown on that. And I see here someone says Happy National Women's Day. I said that earlier in today's broadcast. My name is Jenna Lee. I don't know why I'm coming up as a Facebook user, but her name is Jenna Lee. But anyway, I wrote a book about everything that you all are talking about with traumas and how I persevered and overcame them, how I lost 100 pounds and reinvented myself as well, and how I did the work on myself to get through everything to be a better me. The name of the book is called God Likes the Sound of Good Times. Oh, I'd love to be a guest on the Kim Jacobs Show and talk about it. And I'd love to have you as a guest. So definitely, Jenna Lee, just make sure you send some kind of message over to the Kim Jacobs Show in our inbox, and we'll get you what you need. Okay. I will not allow another child to interfere with another child's learning ever. Okay. I think that's an interesting comment. I don't know what to say to it, but I think that hopefully you'll take the advice that Dr. Kristen shared here today. You have to set boundaries with your children. Yes.
And they do better. And there is scientific evidence to show that children who have boundaries actually feel safer and secure and actually do much better in life in general because they have those boundaries.
I love that. I love that. And listen, everyone, I am going to let you all know too, that if you are interested in just being one of our online contributors here on the Kim Jacobs Show, the only way that our program thrives is through community contributions. We don't have any other way of receiving the funds except for you and your support. So thank you for everything that you do that allows us to be able to keep the program going Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And these are some of the ways you can support. Cash App is $ Kim Jacobs Inc. PayPal.me/Kim Jacobs Inc. And you can become a patron member, and that's at patreon.com/The Kim Jacobs Show. All right. I am so glad that we've had this time together. I think it's been incredible. What's any kind of closing comment that you'd like to share with everyone?
I just like to share with everyone just how wonderful every single one of you are, what you have to offer this world, what a light you are. And if you never had a teacher tell you how proud of them, or how proud of you they are, I am proud of you. So keep up the great work. You are capable of achieving whatever you want to achieve.
Guys, you've heard it from Dr. Kristen. I want you to also tell people how they can stay connected with you. I'm going to put that up again, because that's very important for people to know how to stay connected with you. People are saying, I want to stay connected with you. Where do I find her? I need her. So I see all of your comments coming in, and she's going to tell you how right now.
Yes, please come find me at my website, www.theneurodiverseteacher.com, or on Instagram or TikTok. I am at the.neurodiverse.teacher.
All right. And tomorrow, everyone, this rest of this week, we have some great shows lined up for you further. So let me make sure that I share that with you. I want to make sure I pull that up. And it is, tomorrow. Oh, man. Well, I'm pulling that up. Before I pull that up, let me let you know that people have been asking about this particular product, how to start and succeed in the seminar business. It's many, many years old, but the information is still relevant today. And if you are interested in getting the audio download, this is the image, but it's an audio download. It's $49.99. You can just Cash App, but put in the memo section your email address. Please put your email in the memo section. Don't just Cash App, because then we won't know where to send it. But if you want to hear this information-packed session with Dr. Les Brown and Kim Jacobs, myself, from when we were much younger, as you can see, it's $49.99, and you can go to $Kim Jacobs Inc., or you can send it to paypal.me/Kim Jacobs Inc., and we'll email you that audio download. Is some great, great information in there. All right, so this has been wonderful. Everybody that enjoyed and learned anything today, put in the comment section maybe just one thing that you learned that you're going to apply as a teacher to your new school year as this school year is kicking off, okay? This has been some great information. You are amazing, amazing.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for this experience and the opportunity to talk to your audience, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kristen. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about how good health is wealth. Nick Wharton is going to be on, CEO of the Charlotte Area Fund. But again, globally, this information that he's going to be sharing is going to be helpful to you. So make sure that you are in your virtual seats at 11 o'clock a.m. And then guess what, everybody? On Thursday, you will be able to receive a great treat because we have our own Mackenzie who works backstage with the Kim Jacobs Show. She's coming out of backstage and coming forth to tell her harrowing story of being able to survive a very unique situation that happened in her life. I'm not going to tell you all the details because it'll take away from what happened in her journey to recovery. So I'm going to let her tell you her own story, but she's a survivor, a mother, and a loving wife. And I'm glad to have her on this Thursday at 11 o'clock a.m. All right, everybody, that's our episode. I see everybody's comments. I can't do everything. I see all of y'all, but I don't know what else to do except for just say thank you for being here today, and glad to have each and every one of you in the studio audience. Stay backstage, Dr. Kristen, and I will, you know how you get ready to close out a show and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't say this. What is that one thing that you wanted to say?
Well, what was the one thing I wanted? Did I say? The one thing I was that I'm just grateful to be here and thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
No, I was saying if there was any one thing that you said in your mind, you're like, I knew I should have said this and I didn't say it.
Oh, no, I think we covered everything. And again, so grateful to be here. So grateful for your audience. Thank you for all the wonderful messages that everyone sent in. So I'm grateful to every single one of you.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to go ahead and have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye-bye. And I'll see you backstage. All right, everybody. Mackenzie, we're going to close out now. Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Jacobs, host of The Kim Jacobs Show, where we're bringing balance to the world, one household at a time. Listen, we go live every weekday, Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I bring guests on that talk about their backstories, things that they've had to overcome to become who they are today. Many of them are balancing and juggling life, and they've become experts in different fields. So they're sharing tips with you to make your life just a little bit easier. Many times as a guest in the studio audience, you'll get a chance to walk away with a missing piece of the puzzle that might be missing in your life. Let's go on this journey together, and I look forward to seeing you Monday through Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on The Kim Jacobs Show.